star cities were built all around the world. I'm going to try to get the diagram here. Okay. Smart cities have nothing to do with warfare or defense against gunpowder or cannons in their inception. Star cities have, in fact, existed for many centuries prior to the advent of the cannon, the musket, and the rifle. Here is why I have this opinion. I'm going to try to explain it. This is a very interesting theory, how to plan a city, and why these incredible star cities were built. Who was responsible for the early star cities, like the Japanese shogunate, the Nippon shogunate, the samurai. Remember, cities were quite small in the past, especially ancient cities like original Kyoto or fortresses in Nagasaki or Tokyo, or what is today called modern-day Tokyo. Japanese cities, Japanese castles were built in a star-shaped formation. This was a twofold. This had a twofold purpose. Number one, the star shape is a beautiful shape. It is aesthetically pleasing. Everyone seems to ignore that, like it's not a big deal. An aesthetically pleasing castle is the kind of place you want to live in. The Japanese did not like flowers. They liked rocks, and they actually created rock gardens where the colors were relatively simple. Like you would have a green bush here, a miniature tree over there. You would have sort of a path that was geometrical. This was a passion. And when Western civilization started to see the Japanese empire and its beauty, then that was a duplication of that and an improvement upon that. Because I do think that the Japanese fortresses, as beautiful as they were, and as ancient as they are, because if anyone tries to tell you that the first Japanese fortress was built in the 17th century, they are just lying to you, because they have a narrative, a motive, a bias against this kind of architecture. A Japanese fortress before the Showa era, I'm talking about ancient samurai fortresses protecting a shogun, because that was their life. That was the whole purpose of their existence, and everybody within the castle walls and outside the castle walls. The cities were built in the shape of a star because it was A, aesthetically pleasing, B, it was an easy way to protect the city from a fire, because you're having rivers, you're having irrigation. Now, irrigation was brought to Europe by the Moors in 711 AD, but the shogunates already had that. They already had this. The Japanese Empire and the Ainu people already knew how to direct water, because you don't want to live in a grid system. The Roman style city, it's very hard if there's a fire. Obviously, ancient civilization, there's a lot of reason for the Romans to build this grid with the two main streets in the center. It's organized and the roads are straight. They are using that geometry. The Roman Moorish kind of similarities are incredible if you look into that. If you actually look into the similarities between the ancient Moors from Africa, who conquered most of Europe, and the Roman methodology on how to construct a city and how to begin cities and how to govern all of these smaller empires that were then aligned under the great Roman Empire. That was pretty incredible. But the cities were improved upon by the Star City. Then you have this like circular ring road, kind of almost like a Northern European medieval way to build these round circular towers, these round circular castles. Because you don't want any corners on the castle, because that is how you defend a castle from a military ambush or a siege. You build a circular wall because you don't want there to be any weak point for the enemy to attack. A star city doesn't give you that. A star city gives you aesthetic beauty. It gives you higher frequency of living. It is religious and aligned with the stars, which is again that Moorish, Islamic, Arabic reference that you get all over Europe, especially Spain, Portugal, France. These are city empires that were ruled by the Moors for 700 years, and these star cities began to blossom there. Now, if you then look at the Dutch and the great impact that the Dutch had, and then the Spanish that conquered under Moorish kings France and many other northern European empires like the Germanic Empire, Bavaria, Habsburg, the Habsburg Moor, which even today you can see if you go to the city. You will see that star, the moon and the star, that is Islamic, that is African, that is Arabic. That's where this geometry comes from. The Dutch had at one point or another a really big Islamic influence in their architecture and city planning. Now then you have this kind of rural two-city system, the two-city, tale of two cities. You have this idea where people just build roads until they get somewhere, and then they build another road just randomly to get somewhere. Most cities look like this on GPS, but they didn't start off this way. This is the smart city. This is the perfect city. The London fire would not have happened in a city like this because there are rivers and moats on every external layer of the periphery of the star castle, the Starfort. You have your shogun in the middle, because the earliest mention of Starforts is feudal Japan, and I think there are even older ones than that on top of pyramids. But a stepped pyramid is pretty much the same geometry as a star castle. Again, there are star castles that were built in the 17th century to defend against oncoming armies, but that's not where it comes from. That's not the origin of a star castle, a star fort. They don't come from somebody trying to defend against the advent of gunpowder, cannon, musket, and rifle. In fact, they're probably more useful for an archer or a medieval European, but that idea maybe didn't come up, or that idea didn't spread throughout Europe until the 16th century. However, star castles are ancient, and we may one day find out that they're even older than feudal Japanese fortresses. But in the inner sanctum, you have your inner keep, or the emperor's castle, or schloss. The castle and schloss could be large, could be small. It usually will have a dome on top. They do in Europe, they do in Africa, and they do in the Middle East. They have this dome on top, much like a mosque facing Mecca. And if you start to realize how many of these Orthodox churches are built in the city center, or the star center, the words star, city are related. The English language is the key to understanding the origin of everything. So everything that is described in the English language can be described with taking words apart and looking at the phonics. Like, for example, if you were a king, you are now were king. You're no longer a king because you're working. The morning is not a good thing to say. Hello, morning. It's not a good thing to say because morning is actually the opposite of what you mean. Morning is death, the end of the day. But you do have this Passover event that happens in a star city where the light comes from different areas, but you can easily see that because you're living in a star city and nothing is hidden from view. You don't have to turn many corners to get from here to here or there to there, north to east, south to west, right? Think about that. Think about what those mean. What does it mean to be in the middle of a compass? Why is this the perfect design for a human reality? Why is this the perfect design? You will have other things, like, for example, a volunteer firefighter would live somewhere in the city in this star city. There will be places where the river water can be taken to stop a fire from spreading. Fires can't spread in a star city. Amsterdam, Berlin, Venice, these are all star cities. They've been here for thousands of years. Charles Formosa. Starforts. Till next time.